Behind me is the Mercer Street Playground. And there used to be a plaque there, put there by the city of New York, that basically said this is where the African Grove Theater stood. I started reading about it years and years ago, and there was a book by a guy named James Weldon Johnson, who was the first African American professor at NYU, actually. And he wrote a chapter on African American theater in New York. In it, he talked about the African Grove Theater at Bleecker and Mercer Street. This neighborhood in the 1600s, 1700s, and 1800s was known as the Land of the Blacks. From Greenwich Village, Washington Square, Canal Street, Chinatown, and Little Italy. This is where the African Americans lived. This is Bleecker and Mercer Street, the one milestone right here. And this is where NYU has built its building, this entire block right here. And these two spots are the actual African Grove theaters, the Dry Cleaners and the Angelica Theater there. I thought it was really important to put in place something that showed the presence, the African presence. And that's what makes the African Grove so exciting to bring back, to resurrect, because it helps us understand the complexity of the American theater. The most famous actor to come out of the African Grove was Ira Aldridge, who had an international career. He really made a difference in terms of the way that African Americans were thought of, because remember, the stage is a place where identity is being created. There are many stories of Ira Aldridge performing and then coming out afterwards and talking about abolition. And this theater is dedicated to graduate acting at Tisch. Those are Shakespearean trained actors. Those are actors who learn many different styles. But now they'll learn in a theater on a stage that tells them that there's a history of this in African American culture as well. It's not just the English tradition, it's an American tradition. What makes this so incredible and wonderful is that it commemorates a history and a story that needs to be told and needs to be told today. We are in the vicinity of where the actual African Grove Theater stood. It seated 300, but it was an all-wood construction. This is a modern theater. It seats 139, and we have a full stage. We have fly space. We have amazing lights. The original African Grove Theater used candlelight. So this gives you an idea of how far we've come today. The challenge for raising this at NYU was that no one had heard of the African Grove Theater. So I had to basically do an educational piece where I sent around to everyone I could think of, all the different departments, all the different units of the university, information about the African Grove Theater, basically saying, this is part of our heritage at NYU. And then the excitement caught with everyone, and we thought, wow, we're gonna have 3 theaters in this space. Why don't we name one of those theaters the African Grove Theater? I connected with Larry Maslon, who's the associate chair of the graduate acting program at Tisch, and we raised $1 million to get the African Grove Theater named the African Grove Theater. We were very fortunate. At Gallatin, we are so proud to be part of the narrative that has created a space for the African Grove Theater.